somehow God was proven to not exist,
Yes?
how would you live your life?
Well, obviously my environment influences me. So I would be influenced by my environment as I am today. But if I began to realize that God did not exist, I would have to acknowledge that you and I are cosmic accidents,
Yes.
which means we have no innate value. There is no meaning to life. Morality is relative, which means whatever I want to do is legit, which means really this. Is bashing gays wrong?
Are you asking me?
Right, think about that.
Yes.
Okay? Is abortion wrong?
I'd rather not give my stance on
Okay. Is abusing an innocent child wrong?
it. Yes.
Okay. Now, if there is no God, what you have to acknowledge is the opposite of what you just said you believe is equally true.
That you
Because
say-
morality is relative.
Okay.
Okay? So just think, all of you guys think about, what is my stance on the abuse of an innocent child, the murder of an innocent person, the rape of a woman? Okay, think, what's your position? What's your position on bashing gays? What's your position on abortion? Okay, we all have different opinions, I'm sure. But you see, if you're going to be a consistent atheist, you've got to acknowledge the opposite of however I answered those questions is equally true. So if there is no God, whatever I think about abortion or bashing homosexuals or abusing innocent children or raping women, I have to acknowledge that the opposite of that is equally true. If there is no God, because there's no objective morality. It's all subjective, we all create it. And so if I create the value that abortion is wrong because it's the murder of an innocent child, so what? There's nothing absolutely objectively wrong with murdering an innocent child. So the opposite of my opinion, which is abortion is just fine. In fact, you can take a 1-week-old baby and just drop it and splatter all over the floor. There's nothing objectively wrong with that. It's subjectively wrong or it's subjectively right, but it's not objective.
I may have asked my question incorrectly, but what I really want to know is, if God was proven to not exist,
Yes?
would you live your life in the same way? Would you continue to love your wife and your children? Would you continue to go to work every day? Or would you become a person who was raving in the streets?
Well, I think the evidence, because I'm 58 years old, is that I'm not going to radically change my lifestyle. But yes, I would change.
But would you still become the same? Would you remain the same person you are? Would you still love your wife and your children, even though if in a universe God did not exist?
Well, in light of the fact that my wife is sitting on your left, I better say yes, I'd love her even if God didn't exist.
All right. Okay.
But wait a second.
Okay.
Wait a second. If I realize there is no God, then what is love?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say that. I'm not sure. But if
Oh,
my
I'm
girlfriend
real
was here, I would know what I would say.
Okay, but I think the facts are the following. If there is no God, what's real? Matter and energy. That's what's real. So, all love is a biochemical reaction. You know, a sex drive or a drive to preserve the genetic pool. So, if I realize there is no God, then I have to realize that this thing that I call love, that I say I have for my wife, is just either a sex drive or it's a drive to preserve the genetic pool.
But can't it be more than that? Because
How?
Well, so do you think us humans are different from monkeys and animals?
Well, if there is no God, there is precious little difference between you and me and a monkey.
Do you think the relationship between two monkeys and you and your wife is different?
I, from my observation, would say yes, but if there is no God, it's precious little difference.
Precious little difference?
Yeah.
But so there is difference.
Oh, there's difference, yes.
So what is the difference?
Well, I don't observe monkeys making a lifelong commitment to other monkeys.
Why not?
I don't know why not. They just don't have that instinct.
It seems to me it might be because we're more intelligent to them than them. And that must be because we have had a longer time to evolve. And now, because of our higher intelligence, we're able to interpret these feelings in a different way. Monkeys don't love each other, but humans do.
Okay.
And I don't think it's because there is a God, but because we've had a longer time to evolve, and we've had more time to interpret these emotions and these chemical reactions.
Okay, nice point. But here's my problem. My problem is, when you say there is no God, you limit reality.
Okay.
Because if there is no God, there's not some value of love floating around. There's matter and energy. That's all that goes on here. Complex biochemical reactions in my brain, right? So I might like to call it love, but all it is a chemical reaction. See, there's no me that goes beyond the chemical reaction. Because if there is no God, there's no soul, there's no personality. They're just massive chemical reactions. Now, maybe you want to call one of those chemical reactions love, but let's be real honest, it's not a free decision that you make. It's just a chemical reaction that goes off in your brain, and so you behave a certain way.
You brought up the idea of a free decision.
Right.
So does God give us free decisions?
Exactly.
But how can he if he is a supreme being?
Good. Great question. I like the way you think. The all-powerful God is capable of limiting his power by giving us a free will. The all-powerful God is capable of limiting his power by giving us a free will.
How can something all-powerful limit itself? It doesn't make sense.
Because he has a free will.
That's just...
Oh, come on now, you know that. I'm a dad. When I got 3 little boys, I limit my power When they defy me and rebel against me, I could crush those little guys.
But how can
But I
somebody-
limit my power, and I say, okay, you have a free will to disobey me, but there are going to be consequences. I'm going to punish you. But I don't crush them. I discipline them in love, and then hopefully teach them.
So if something that is all-powerful limits itself, isn't it still all-powerful?
Good. Okay, now that's why we got to be real careful with this idea, God is all-powerful. When we say that God is all-powerful, we do not mean that God can make 2 + 2 = 5.
Why can't he?
Because that is irrational, illogical, and contrary to reality.
Well, if he's all-powerful, can he not make the irrational true?
No. You see, and I'll give you another example. God cannot make himself exist and not exist at the same time in the same way.
But that's not all power. All power would allow you to do that. That's just a definition of all
Good.
power.
Then in that sense, in your sense, God is not all-powerful.
Okay.
Not only that, but the Bible points out God cannot do evil. Yes, he's all-powerful, but no, God cannot do evil because his nature is good. And because his nature is good, he cannot do evil.
Okay.
See, so that's why you got to be real careful with this idea of God being all-powerful. No, the Bible does not teach God is all-powerful in the sense that he can make a square circle.
Okay.
God cannot make a square circle. That's impossible. Now, can God perform a miracle and change a law of nature? And then walk on water, rise from the dead? You bet. But you see, that's not contradicting logic. That is changing a natural law and performing what you and I call a miracle.
It still seems though that's if something is dead and it comes back to life, how is that different from making a square circle?
Okay, before I answer you, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the way you talk and think with me. It shows a tremendous amount of respect, and I respect you, and I thank you.
I respect you too.
All right, I really appreciate it, man. So thank you. Okay, good question. What's the difference between God making a square circle and Jesus Christ rising from the dead? Good question. Making a square circle violates reasonable, violates logic. Rising from the dead is not irrational if there is a God who created the natural laws in the first place. Because all resurrection is he's changing a natural law. He's not contradicting it, he's changing it. But to make a square circle is to contradict what is reasonable, what is logical.
Well, did God create logic at that point? Because it seems if he created the square, he could say the square is a circle.
Good. Remember, it gets back to God is eternal, God's nature is good, but God's nature is also reasonable.
Okay.
See, another piece of evidence that God exists is your rational mind, that you obviously have developed very well, because you're thinking so reasonably, okay? You see, but now think about this. If there is no God, what did your rational mind come from?
I would say, and now I haven't done a lot of research on this, but
Okay.
evolution says that we have evolved our minds through history. We've had the luck of being able to develop our minds in a way that we can think this way. That's what I would say.
Okay, but what I want to do is I want to push your thinking back a little further
Okay.
into origin.
Okay.
Remember, if there is no God, there is no rational being who gave you your rational mind. Instead, if there is no God, your rational mind came from inanimate matter and energy evolved to a higher order. In other words, your rational mind came from the non-rational. You know, sir, that's where my mind goes bonkers. That is impossible. It's impossible for the rational to come from the non-rational. My 3 sons have rational minds. Why? Because they come from her and from me. You see, they come from rational beings. I've never met a rational being that didn't come from a rational being. But what an atheist is saying is, a rational being can come from the non-rational.
What are you saying is rational, Matt?
What is rational is that which is reasonable, that which is able to perceive reality.
Is grass rational?
No, grass does not have reasoning powers.
Would you say that grass can change over time?
Well, yeah, the grass will change according to whether it's watered or not.
Could you say that the grass adapts to its environment?
Yes?
So, given what you say, grass could be given a long amount of time to the point where it adapts enough so that it develops a mind.
Well, no, but the grass doesn't have a mind.
Not yet. It could.
Well, I've never seen a piece of grass develop a mind.
But just because you don't see it, like I don't see God, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Good point. I have never observed the non-rational work itself to the rational. I don't care if it's grass, rocks, trees, animals, plant life of any kind. See, I have never observed in all my observation and a non-rational inanimate object either become living, animate, or rational.
The only way I could retort with that would say is that, well, just because I don't see an invisible dog next to me does not mean it does not exist.
Okay, good. Very good. I've never seen love. I'm convinced that love exists because of my experience, right? My experience of life is, my experience of relationships are that love is real, but I've never seen a foot of love, all right? So I know that the unseen is real. Now, how would you respond to me if I said to you, I believe in the pink elephant right here on my right. This pink elephant gives my life meaning, purpose, direction, and this pink elephant right here, I'm convinced is going to give me life after death. What would you say to me?
I would say that's irrational.
Good. Bravo. You would say that's irrational. But remember what your statement is based on. Your statement is based on, Cliff, first of all, there's such a thing as reality. And second thing is, there's such a thing as a rational mind. And if you exercise your rational mind in a responsible way, you will realize there's no pink elephant on your right hand. Okay, but you see all the presuppositions philosophically that go into that. What goes into that is, reality exists, Cliff, separate from your mind. The pink elephant, Cliff, is not there, even though your mind tells you it is. And the second thing you're telling me is, Cliff, if you'll wake up and smell the coffee and start thinking rationally, you'll realize that that pink elephant is not there. In other words, your reason can put you in touch with reality. And that's beautiful.
But doesn't that say that then God can't exist because it's irrational?
No, God is not irrational. God is rational, but God obviously goes beyond the rational. But guess what? So do you. So do I.
Well, I would just end by saying God, to me, is as rational as a pink elephant standing next to me right now.
Okay, God is as rational as a pink elephant. Okay, but then don't you think that the evidence of order and design points to an intelligent mind behind creation?
No more than it does a pink elephant next to me.
And you really think that reason can come from non-reason? You really think that life can come from non-life?
I think it does. I think science shows that it does. And I'm not that intelligent to argue that point.
Okay, see, I would argue that life coming from non-life is a miracle. Reason coming from non-reason is a miracle. Objective morals coming about by chance is a miracle. The only problem is my atheist friends don't have a miracle worker. They believe in miracles, but they don't have someone to work the miracles. That's why rationally I have such a hard time with atheism.